Good afternoon and welcome to this hearing of the House Health Committee. I'm Chair Heather Bagnall with my amazing Vice Chair Cullison and our team. I ask for your patience if we encounter any technical or streaming issues. This hearing is being streamed on the Maryland General Assembly YouTube channel, and thank you all for your patience today. We are at the point of the session where we are definitely hurry up and wait. Please note that food and beverages are not permitted in the gallery. Delegates may have drinks at their desks as these meetings can run long, and we want to make sure that everyone stays hydrated. Please make sure you turn off your phones at this time or turn them to silent. And if you see that a member is not here, they may have bill hearings in other committees, they may have meetings working out their bills, but they are staying apprised of our proceedings. Please adhere to our usual committee rules of one question and one answer from the panel, not one question and one answer from each panelist, and please ensure that your questions are shorter than the answers. Keep in mind that we do have a voting session after this, as well as we will be returning to the floor at 5:30 today. We have three bills for this hearing today. So we're going to start with, we're going to take the bills in this order. House Bill 1537, followed by 1527, followed by 1558. Know that our sponsors are not time limited, but please keep your testimony within reason so we don't have to revisit that policy. And all witnesses on the bills have 2 minutes. With that, Delegate Amprey, if you want to come to the table and bring your panel, and we'll start with House Bill 1537, Public Health Newborn Screening Program, and you can get started with your testimony when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and this is my first time in the committee since your appointment as the new chair. So I know you've heard congratulations a million times, but I want to say it again, and I also want to give a big thank you and congratulations to Madam Vice Chair. This will be my last time in this committee, last time seeing you in this role. I know we've worked together many times over the years, and I just want to thank you for your service. I've definitely borrowed some things from you over the years as far as how to be a great legislator, so in the legislature. With that said, for the record, Delegate Marlon Amprey here in support of House Bill 1537, Public Health Newborn Screening Program, Metachromatic Leukodystrophy, MLD. I want to read, but I might get a little emotional talking about this matter because it's really close to the heart. But I'll give a quick description of what the bill as currently drafted does. This bill will require the Maryland Department of Health to introduce newborn screening for MLD. MLD can be treated in its early or pre-symptomatic stages, meaning that early detection is critical for maintaining the child's health and is literally the only way, based on current forms, to maintain the child's health. I was made aware of this disease through my friend to the right, who's also my constituent. We both have entered parenthood as of recently. We share many of friends, and we talk about, all the time about, the difficulties of being a father and dealing with all the things, but learned that his daughter, Carmen, actually was diagnosed with MLD. And when my wife and I found out about it and the realities of it, it was really heartbreaking and touching. No one should have to deal with that. And knowing how great of a person Tom is and his wife is, it's even more heartbreaking to understand what they're going through. So I think this bill is important so that we can ensure that families like this and all families can have all the tools necessary to make sure that they understand what their child is going through so that we can ensure that we can address this disease. Maryland would not be the first state to have this. The state of New York, through their State Department of Health, became the first in the nation to implement universal newborn screening for MLD in 2025. And in March of 2024, the good news here is that the FDA approved the use of Linmeldy, the first gene therapy for MLD. This treatment significantly extends life expectancy and reduces cognitive and physical decline when administered in earlier pre-symptomatic stages. So what this bill would do is would allow us to ensure that all families have access to the screening in order to make sure that they can receive this new treatment as soon as possible to extend their child's life and keep these families together. Now, I understand we are under some really tough budgetary issues this session and moving forward, but I like to always think of it, if you have money that you know and are guaranteed, I think in this legislature we put a lot of money towards projects and missions, and we hope that the thing turns out well. We hope that this, this money over here will help this group, or this money here will, help this transportation project, which could lead to certain things, could lead to jobs, could lead to something. But we know if we put money into this program, we know that we can protect life and ensure life. And I think that's something that, I think we all can agree that if I know a little less than $1 million can ensure that lives can be saved, I think it's worth every dollar. With that said, we understand those budgetary concerns. There are some amendments that we have drafted, that we are drafting, and that you will hear about from the panel. But ultimately, what the amendments would do was create a task force. If we can't find the money to make this happen, but we create a task force that would then figure out how we can put together a system and a way to find the money to make this happen. But ultimately, I'm urging for a favorable report because I truly believe, and this legislature has proven that if we have the science and we have the methodologies to protect life, preserve life, we fight and we find a way to make sure that we can get it to our constituents and everyone here in Maryland. And I think this bill would do just that. So I urge a favorable report for House Bill 1537, and I will turn it over to my panel. I guess I'll start with you.
Thank you for those kind words. Delicate, it means really a lot to me. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the Health Committee. My name is Thomas Akris, and I am the father of Carmen Akris, who's here today with my wife, Annie Akris, behind me. And because she cannot advocate for herself, I'm here today to advocate for her and children like her, to raise awareness about this disease, and respectfully ask the committee to issue a favorable report on House Bill 1537. MLD, or metachromatic leukodystrophy, is a rare and devastating genetic disorder that progressively destroys a child's ability to walk, talk, and interact with the world. It does not happen all at once. It happens piece by piece and over time. For families like mine, that progression is something you watch, knowing there is very little you can do once symptoms appear. Carmen was born in August 2022. A happy and beautiful child. And although her speech and gait were somewhat delayed, we had no immediate concerns. In late 2023, a speech therapist recommended further evaluation, but it was not until September 2024, after an MRI, and then October of 24, through blood and urine testing, that we received her diagnosis of metachromatic leukodystrophy. By then, the disease had already progressed beyond the point where treatment could help. And had newborn screening been in place at the time of Carmen's condition, we would have likely detected it early enough, and she would have been eligible for life-saving treatment. What makes this especially difficult is that today there is hope, but only if the disease is caught early. There was a treatment approved, as Delegate Ampry stated, in 2024 that can significantly change the course of this disease, but timing is everything. Once symptoms begin, that window for treatment is gone. That is why newborn screening matters so much. It is not just a public health program. It is the difference between intervention and heartbreak. House Bill 1537 brings attention to how long it can take to implement new screenings in Maryland. I support the bill as amended, which establishes a task force focused on identifying practical ways to shorten time between when conditions are recommended by the state's council and when screening is actually available to families. For families like mine, time is not abstract. It is everything. I ask you to help ensure that other families have the chance we did not.
Hello, Madam Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Susan Sullivan, and like Tom, I'm also a parent affected by metachromatic leukodystrophy. My son Daniel was born in 2011, and he was a vibrant toddler until a few months before his third birthday, he was diagnosed with metachromatic leukodystrophy. Like Tom's daughter, the decline was merciless. In May of that year, Daniel could talk, walk, and feed himself. By September, he lost the ability to swallow, speak, or even sit up. The clumsiness we had seen was actually his nerves dying. He lived in constant neuropathic pain, eventually requiring around-the-clock Valium and oxycodone to survive the night. As the disease progressed, Daniel's body began to fail in ways that we couldn't imagine. By age 6, Daniel went blind, losing the last joy he had watching movies. He died a year later, trapped, able to only listen to movies, we hope. He had no way to tell us if he could still hear. Maryland is a leader in pediatric care and research. We need to be a leader in newborn screening so children born in Maryland have the same expectation and access to treatment for MLD like kids born in New York State and the 3 others in the United States that are current testing. It took us 7 years to begin testing for adrenoleukodystrophy, a disease like MLD. And that disease, the key research for that started in Maryland, but we were one of the last states to begin testing. I am a voting member of the Advisory Council on Inheritable and Congenital Disorders. I have seen firsthand the passion and care that the members of the committee, many of them who treat kids with rare diseases, have. I want to see that passion and care translated into increased funding for testing from the state and better planning and faster implementation of testing for new diseases. And that is the reason that I am here today to support this bill.
Thank you very much for your testimony and for sharing your very personal stories. Delegate Ampry, I have one virtual witness that's information. Are they on your sponsor panel?
Yes, Dr. Orchard.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if we can go ahead and bring up Dr. Orchard, and you can unmute and begin your testimony.
Thanks.
Mr. Orchard, if you would unmute and you can begin your testimony.
Yes, thanks for the opportunity to speak to the group today. So I'm a pediatric hematologist, oncologist, blood and marrow transplant physician. Been at the University of Minnesota for over 30 years now. So my population of patients that I generally see are those that have rare inherited metabolic and enzyme deficiencies. And we've been treating these types of patients with bone marrow transplant for decades. It's been quite clear that transplant does not work as well as we would like for some of these diseases like metachromatic leukodystrophy. And the safety issues still remain. We've gotten a lot better in decreasing the morbidity and mortality of transplant, but it's still a problem. About 10 or 15% of the kids die going through transplantation. And one of the reasons that it's not been adequate therapy is because we haven't been able to deliver sufficient amounts of enzyme. So those problems have still remained. So there's the opportunity now to use gene therapy for metachromatic leukodystrophy. The gene therapy product called Linmeldy was approved by the FDA about 2 years ago. And the clinical trials were all run in Milan, Italy. And there, the patients that were treated with the gene therapy have done actually remarkably well. But one of the things that became incredibly important to understand in terms of those outcomes is we needed to treat these patients early in the course of their disease. Pre-symptomatically, actually, is a key aspect of this. And many of those patients that were treated on those clinical trials in Italy were second siblings. So essentially, an older sibling was diagnosed after they became symptomatic. Those siblings were not eligible for the procedure, and they essentially progressed and died. But their younger siblings were then identified very early because of prior siblings' previous diagnosis. And those are the patients that were primarily on the trial. And again, it became very clear that those are the patients that have tended to benefit from the intervention. But
Can you wrap up your testimony, please?
Sorry?
Can you please wrap up your testimony?
Can I please wrap it up? Okay. So essentially, having to wait for a prior child to be diagnosed is not where we want to be with this. We need to be able to identify these patients as early as we can. And I think newborn screening is absolutely critical to be able to treat these patients effectively.
Thank you very much for your testimony. I want to thank you very much for sharing your very personal stories. I know that is not easy. And I will tell you, Delegate Ampry, that the fiscal note reflects the fact that MLD was added to the RUSP in December of 2025, and the department is currently working on adding the test to Maryland screening panel. So, so your bill is very current. Are there any questions from the members for this panel? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony.
Madam Chair.
Thank you for being here today. This does conclude the bill hearing on House Bill 1537. We are now going to go to House Bill 1527. This is Complementary and Alternative Healthcare Practice Authorized Complementary and Alternative Healthcare Practice Act. Delegate Ericon, if you want to come to the table, and you can bring your panel, and you can get started with your testimony when you're ready.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, my friends of the Health Committee. I'm happy to be here again. I will start rolling while my panel takes a seat. I believe also one of my panel members is online. Yeah, Nate, yeah. Okay, so there's a lot of written testimony you guys may have looked at. I will tell you, we've done a complete redraft of the bill, which you should have. It basically struck the entire original bill. And so I just want to go over a little bit about what is now actually included, because I think that it's going to allay a ton of the opposition testimony concerns. We've got very prescriptive to avoid any complicating issues. But essentially what we're trying to do is make sure that we very responsibly protect public health and safety around alternative healthcare practices and treatments and traditional healthcare practices and treatments, and keep it separate from licensed medical practice of any kind. That's the goal of the bill. And so in that vein, the amendment as it's been drafted literally prescribes, if you have the interlineated copy on page 13 of 16, exactly what this does entail, so that any folks who were concerned that they could be scooped up or their scope of practice could be somehow included in this bill, this clarifies it, we believe, completely, and we're certainly open to amendments to make sure it clarifies completely that it should not in any way touch on these other licensed clinical practices that are in the state of Maryland. So just briefly, Madam Chair, if you'll indulge me, I'll just read through some of them for you. So this would include things like acupuncture, aromatherapy, Ayurvedic things, cranial sacral. I'm just throwing out some of these so that you can conceptualize what this really is, so that you can know what it's not. Meditation, body work, things like this. Things that are already occurring in the state of Maryland, but do not fall under any scope of practice for any licensed clinical medical professionals. So that's essentially what it does, but it also makes sure that folks that are working in these alternative therapies have some ground rules set for them so that they can communicate to the public what exactly it is they're doing. So it makes it clear that they can't perform any surgeries or expose anybody to x-rays, set fractures, puncture the skin, things like that. But it also says that they have to provide the name, title, business address, telephone number of the practice. They also have to indicate to the client if they do hold a license or certificate or any type of authorization issued by any health occupations boards. They have to describe to the patient exactly what they're providing to them, any education, credentialing that they have, and then they need to make sure they get signed written consent. That's a really important piece of this. We want to make sure that the customers, the clients, know exactly what they're getting and what they're agreeing to and what they're not. So that's the gist of this entire bill as it's redrafted. And I do just want to, for a moment, touch on a couple of comments in some of the testimony to make sure you guys understand where bills like this are coming from. There are several other states, for example, who have already passed legislation like this. And so just briefly, I'm going to tell you a couple of the states once I shift through my 10,000 pages of documents. I thought this would be a really brief bill, but it turns out it's a lot more complex than I thought. Okay, so the conservative bastions of California and Minnesota, Rhode Island, and most recently Maine, they all have policies like this on the books. So this is not this is not a partisan issue. There are some conservative states as well. Arizona as well is one of the states that has a policy like this on the books. So we do have some very good examples, and I know some of my other testifiers are going to touch on policies in those states, but I also wanted to draw your attention to a support bill from Mr. Scott McRoy, and he was the board chair of Luminous Health in Anne Arundel County, and now he's a current board member, and he has a great positive testimony about how this bill, as amended, strikes a good balance between protecting consumers' choices, but also making sure we maintain patient protection around some of these issues. I have a lot to say on this, but there is a decent amount of folks here, so I don't want to take up too much of the committee's time. I know we were of a late hour, but this bill is important. It's important for folks to have options and access to alternative treatments. I know many of us over the years have sought medical care, and sometimes some of us have found that the traditional health care that we sought was really helped and supported by also having access to alternative treatments. So that's what the bill does, and I'm open to questions, but I will allow my panel to continue. Madam Chair, how do you want us to start? Do you want to start online or in person? Oh, okay. You want to go ahead, and we'll go to Nate, and he'll be the closer.
Okay. First of all, my name is Raylyn Torzone. I am the author of this bill, and I want to thank the Madam Chair, Vice Chair, and the committee for allowing us to come in and talk today. This is a very important topic for me. I have a very unique perspective on this issue. I spent 38 years working in conventional medicine. First, I diagnosed cancer for 15 years as a cytotechnologist, and later became a physician assistant. I have a great respect for the role licensed medicine plays in protecting patients and providing critical medical care. At the same time, my own personal health journey showed me the value of complementary approaches. When conventional treatment was unable to fully resolve my health challenges, it was through holistic and traditional wellness practices here in Maryland. Actually, this wasn't available to me in another state. I moved here, and they helped me survive. I have 7 children that I live for now. I was paralyzed. I went blind several times. I couldn't eat food anymore. I was emaciated, and no one knew what was wrong. I found a guy that helped me out in Maryland, and I'm so forever grateful for this. I don't exclude any of the training and the expertise that comes from medical doctors at all. What I'm saying is I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for these modalities here in Maryland. We are diverse in our culture, we're diverse in our religious beliefs, and I'm proud that Maryland is that way. They've always respected tradition and other people's way of healing. These modalities are safe. They are not destructive at all, and you can see that in the cost of the insurance rates is only up to $232 a year compared to regular medical insurance rates for malpractice. So even the insurance companies have said this is very safe. I want people to know that I went on because of my own healing journey and had to learn some of these things. I had to travel the world. I traveled to conferences and became an expert in many of these modalities. I've written a book on the foundations of energy healing in the human body. So I've brought in the science because of my background to explain to people that this is real, this works, and it can really make a difference in your health. And I opened a school.
Can you please wrap up your testimony?
Yes. I opened a school, and it's part of the American Naturopathic Medical Association now. It is worth CME, so doctors, nurses, anybody who wants to take the courses to help learn a little bit about what we do. The collaboration between all of the doctors and what we do is so important to clients. Doctors just don't have the amount of time that we can spend with people, and we are very well trained.
I do need you to wrap up your testimony.
Okay, so I want to say thank you for listening to me, and I appreciate your time, and I think Nate's going to go next. And I'm going to explain who Nate is. Nate and Petra are people that helped me and the rest of the writers from the National Freedom Health Coalition. They've passed this law in 11 states, and Nate is going to speak to you on what he's the expert in.
Mr. Gorman, do you want to go ahead and begin your testimony?
Yes, I am waiting on a colleague, too, who's supposed to be joining me. She's our staff attorney who is here to answer and provide some of the legal testimony. And so she's not been let in, but I'll present my portion right now, and if whoever can let her into the Zoom meeting, that'd be great. Thank you, Madam Chair Bagnall and Vice Chair Cullison and members of the House Health Committee. And thank you for allowing National Health Freedom Action this opportunity for our panel to testify in support of House Bill 1527. Our organization has been working with local activists upon their request for over 2 decades in many states to help them pass what we call safe harbor protections in their states. My name is Nate Gorman. I'm the Legislative and Policy Advisor for National Health Freedom Action. Complementary and alternative healing arts practitioners are dedicated to providing consumers and their clients with gentle, non-invasive, complementary, and alternative health services. And their practices are loved in Maryland and across the nation in no small part due to the individualized, unrushed attention that consumers desire. House Bill 1527 will ensure Maryland consumers have access and practitioners have the right to provide their services without fear of violating broad interpretations of the practice of medicine and other practices acts. This legislation protects access to non-invasive, complementary, and alternative services by requiring practitioners that are not licensed as healthcare professionals under Maryland law to follow the safe harbor boundaries by avoiding the prohibited acts that you'll see listed in the bill and give out the proper consumer disclosures as described by our sponsor. In the 11 states where various forms of safe harbor legislation have already passed, and sponsor already listed California, Colorado, Minnesota, Rhode Island, Maine, Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, Idaho, Oklahoma, and Louisiana. The practitioners offer services to satisfied customers by staying within the safe harbor boundaries and avoiding the prohibited acts. Additional consumer protection provisions require practitioners to disclose the services that they have to offer and that they are not medical or other licensed health professionals in the state, which actually enhances the existing consumer protections. Those who practice outside these very clear boundaries described in House Bill 1527 will still be subject to the full force of current law that protects consumers from harm. This legislation protects access to complementary and alternative practices without inherent risk of harm. Practices like Reiki, homeopathy, herbalism, traditional naturopathy, making a distinction between that and naturopathic doctors.
Mr. Gorman, can you please wrap up your testimony?
Spiritual, cultural healing, and hundreds of wellness vocations that are generally regarded as safe. NHFA respectfully urges you to support passage of House Bill 1527, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you for your testimony, and if you can stay on while we finish the panels in case there are any questions. And I believe, is this Petra Broken? If you want to go ahead and unmute and begin your testimony.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Petra Broken. I'm a staff attorney with the nonprofit National Health Freedom Action, and I'm here in support of the bill. I'm also here in support of the people in this state who wish to be able to access these sorts of gentle healing arts, and also the people who want to practice these occupations. So the question is, why pass this bill? Legally, a state can license occupations through their police power to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public, of the people in the state. So the occupation then, to be licensed, to be regulated, has to pose a significant risk of imminent harm to the public, or it can't be regulated. The reason for the bill is the position that natural healers find themselves in because of the Medical Practices Acts and acts like that in a state. These acts can shut down natural healers who don't pose a significant risk of harm and therefore shouldn't be regulated, and subject them to criminal prosecution, fines, and jail time. These practice acts are usually overbroad and even can prohibit the healing that we do for each other, like even parents giving a child chicken soup to help a cold, and they also prohibit the gentle holistic healing occupations. The Maryland Medical Practices Act defines practicing medicine in part as diagnosing, healing, treating, preventing, prescribing for, or removing any physical, mental, or emotional ailment or supposed ailment. So what does that mean? That means in Maryland, if you put a Band-Aid on your child with the intent to heal a skinned knee, and you're not a licensed doctor, you might be practicing medicine without a license. If you massage your friend's temples when they have a headache, and you're doing it to help heal them, then you're likely practicing medicine without a license. You can face misdemeanor prosecution, jail time, and fines. There are other practice acts as well, like the Maryland Naturopathic Medicine Act, and that makes a violation a felony with up to a $50,000 fine. So this bill, this safe harbor bill, solves this problem. It exempts out the occupations that don't arise to posing a significant risk of harm to the public. The bill protects the public through a client bill of rights and a list of prohibited acts that the practitioner can't do. So I too urge you to vote yes on this bill, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. I have two more witnesses for your sponsor panel, and then we'll open it up for questions. Awesome.
My name is Ann Clark. Thank you so much for letting me come and speak before you all. I'm 70 years old, and my life has always been devoted to health and healing. I have worked at Johns Hopkins at the senior level. I have taught diagnostic ultrasound there and at UMBC. As I aged, I became chronically fatigued with back pain and insomnia. I developed type 2 diabetes and severe neuropathy in my feet. It was like 1,000 hornets stinging my feet 24/7. I got so bad I couldn't wear shoes. A painful rash began breaking out all over my body, and I was given repeated rounds of oral and topical steroids, which of course sent my blood sugar through the roof, and I gained 50 pounds. Then I began to have chronic migraines and blurred vision. I had recurring bouts of indigestion and reflux. I was in a living hell. I did not want any more prescription drugs because nothing was actually working. This went on for 7 years. By now I was 65 and I was living as a semi-invalid. I could barely take care of myself, my house, and my husband. All I wanted to do was sleep all day. I prayed that I would find some help, and I met some alternative healthcare providers. They offered things that I've never heard of in the medical world: bioenergetic rebalancing, which uses my own reflexes to find the root causes of my problems and remove the blocks so that my body can heal itself through nutritional supplements. Also, NASA's zero-gravity red light bed, which reduces inflammation and re-energizes your cells. My electrical system was regrounded with a pulsed electromagnetic frequency mat, and ion cleanse foot baths helped to detox me. My body's response was astounding. After the first 3 weeks, the rash of 7 years was gone, and the migraines and the stinging in my feet were almost gone. I could wear shoes again. So I'm here now 5 years later. I'm 70 years old. I'm back in the workforce. I have studied to become an alternative healthcare practitioner, and I hope that you will support this bill and my new life and career. Thank you.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Nia Chamberlain. I just want to thank everybody for allowing me to speak my testimony today. I am here in support of Maryland House Bill 1527. I support this bill because I believe people should have the right to choose what types of health and wellness services they use. Many people already seek alternative and complementary options, and this bill simply ensures that those choices happen with honesty and transparency. What is important about this bill is that it protects consumers while still respecting personal choice. It requires practitioners to clearly explain who they are and what services they provide so that people can make informed decisions. It also keeps clear safety boundaries in place and does not change existing medical licensing laws. Instead, it helps ensure that everyone understands the difference between medical care and wellness services. At the end of the day, people do deserve the freedom to explore different approaches to their health as long as they have clear information. For these reasons, I respectfully ask the committee to support House Bill 1527. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony, and I think I can speak on behalf of the committee to say we're very pleased that you're all doing so well. This concludes the sponsor panel. Are there questions from the members for this panel? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony. We do have a favorable panel, a favorable with amendments, and an unfavorable panel. So let me go ahead and call our, Let me go ahead and call our favorable panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We've got Christine Hunt, Elisa Morsch, Barbara Claire, and Laura Colacune. And my apologies if I butchered your name. So if you want to go ahead and come to the table, and you can begin your testimony when you're ready.
Oh, you want me to go first? Hi, thank you for letting me speak today. My name is Christine Hunt, and I would like for you guys to consider voting favorably on this bill. I am a certified practitioner of emotional freedom techniques. It's also known as EFT or tapping, if you've ever heard of that. Currently, I'm also taking training on Eden energy medicine, and I've received my level 1 certification just a couple weeks ago, actually. I will be starting my level 2 classes coming June. And in my practice, I've been coaching about 12 years now using EFT. And I've worked with hundreds of clients, and I really know the value of this particular modality's ability to help them. I've literally seen lives change. So in my practice, I have new clients complete an intake form before we begin working together. It is that legal document that basically is what you guys are talking about in 41527. The form gathers basic information about the client, information about the method that I use in our sessions, its limitations, my background, confidentiality clauses, their signature of acknowledgement, as well as more things. The 4 conditions outlined in HB 1527 creates a similar method for a non-licensed or certified practitioner of a complementary or alternative therapy to share who they are, what they do, what the client can expect of them, and more, similar to what my intake form is. The required signature and the time to retain the document, to me, is an acceptable part of the bill and is similar to most any other type of business arrangement that practitioners like myself and in the medical profession have. So I feel that this document can help to avoid misunderstandings and potentially, in some cases, litigation that can destroy the lives and financial well-being of good people who are just trying to help. So please vote in favor of HB 1527. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Thank you for your time. My name is Elisa Morsch, and I'm here as a witness and a consumer and Maryland citizen. Sorry. Here we go. Okay. So I'm here to ask for the support for House Bill 1527 as a consumer and a Maryland citizen. I receive good health care from my conventional primary care physician. Even so, I've had limited success in improving certain aspects of my health through her recommendations. My health issues have often hindered my ability to carry out my work to the best of my ability and to accomplish the things that I need and want to do. And it was not until I began multiple complementary, and alternative health practices that my health turned around. And the results have really been transformative. I've got pain is no longer there. My digestive system is like so much better. I've lost 45 pounds in months. My mind is clear. I have energy that I thought I was never going to have again, and I feel really good about life. And what I want to say is that, I work full-time. In addition to that, I help run our family farm. This is very physically demanding. I'm out in the fields with just like work in the fields and with the animals. I care for my elderly parents, and I like to volunteer through my church and other things. And I wouldn't be able to do all those things if I didn't have access to this kind of care. And I really think that this really extends beyond me. It goes back ultimately into our communities, and I think it's really, really important to support this bill. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Chairwoman Bagnall, Vice Chair Cullison, and members of the Health Committee. Thank you for your consideration of and hearing on this important legislation for the state of Maryland, HB 1527, the Complementary and Alternative Health Care Act, and for the opportunity to speak today. Thank you also to Delegate Erickson for sponsoring this critical piece of legislation. Marylanders deserve the option to receive alternative health care in safe and supportive environments, and this bill ensures that will continue to happen. My own holistic health journey began nearly 20 years ago in Laurel and continues to this day, mostly in Anne Arundel County, but I will travel to other counties if needed to receive the best holistic care. I receive regular acupuncture, massages, Reiki, stretches, craniosacral therapies, chiropractic treatments, nutrition services with organic whole food supplements, ion detoxes, and red light therapy. Because of holistic wellness, I am healthier in middle age than I was before and have no major health issues. Through holistic practices, seasonal allergies I have had since childhood are mostly non-existent now, and I used to get regular allergy shots. Also, my anxiety has been controlled, and the symptoms only spiraled when taking Western medicine. The one dearest to my heart, I was able to conceive easily at the age of 36 and have my one and only child through the aid of acupuncture, when Western doctors had said in my early 30s I would not be able to conceive due to a physical abnormality. The only Western medicine I am still on is a small dosage from a prescription I was given many years ago to address the physical symptoms of anxiety. I now only take 1/8 of the amount I originally had because of the holistic treatments that I have received. Through more work, I will eventually be off the chemical-laden Western medicine and will maintain my health and wellness entirely through the wonderful holistic practices available to us. I feel very fortunate that our state has some phenomenal holistic practitioners. Though I'm not originally from Maryland, I have lived more than half of my life in this wonderful state that has become my home. I have thought about moving back to my home state as my parents are aging, but one of the biggest factors that keep me here is the amazing team of holistic providers I have here. Please help keep them here too through passage of this legislation. Thank you for supporting and encouraging holistic practitioners to work in our state. I respectfully ask that you vote in favor of this legislation, and thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. And can you just, for the record, state your name?
Laura Calhoun.
I knew, but I just want to make sure it's on the record.
Yes, of
and
course.
do we have Barbara Claire here? All right.
She had to leave. I have her
She had to
testimony.
leave. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure that, that I hadn't missed anyone. Are there any questions for this panel from the members? Seeing none, thank you all very much for your testimony and for your patience, and we're very glad that you're doing so well. We do have a favorable with amendments. Do we have Tom Swiss? You want to come to the table and give your testimony?
Thank you, delegates. I did not get a chance to review the amended bill that you have seen, so my comments are based on the original bill, so please pardon me for that. Thank you, delegates. My name is Tom Swiss. I know some of you just saw me on Zoom yesterday about HB 374. Today, I'm here in favor of HB 1527. I had proposed 2 small amendments. I am a licensed massage therapist, nationally certified as diplomate in Asian bodywork therapy by the NCB-AHM, and an AOBTA certified practitioner. I've practiced massage and Asian bodywork therapy for over 20 years. I'm on the medical staff of Mercy Hospital, where I work with cancer patients, and I teach fundamentals of Asian bodywork to massage therapy students at the Potomac Massage Training Institute. In my practice, I incorporate several modalities covered by this bill: Many massage therapists incorporate them, and the NCBTMB recognizes them as valid topics for continuing education. Like many massage therapists, I practiced some of these modalities before I became an LMT. These low-barrier therapies with no license requirements allow people to quickly obtain a skill which they can put to work in formal or informal self-employment. These therapies are also integrated by licensed practitioners, massage therapists, as mentioned. I also know nurses and paramedics who use them. HB 1527 would protect us and our clients from overzealous regulatory bureaucracy. It would preserve the decades-long status quo for complementary and alternative care. Unfortunately, we've seen this session why such protection is needed. The Acupuncture Board introduced HB 374, which in its original form would have effectively banned the practice of acupressure. The entire point of complementary and alternative medicine is that it is alternative. Standardization and licensing work against its defining characteristics. Many practices come from folk medicine and can be practiced either informally or as dedicated, skilled profession. They take a minute to learn, a lifetime to master. It's unfortunate that some practitioners believe they can obtain higher status or greater financial success by ceasing to be alternative and moving towards the high barrier medical model. But I'm asking you to support freedom of choice. More than 30% of American adults use some form of complementary care. This bill protects the freedom of millions of Marylanders. I had proposed amendments to differentiate acupuncture from traditional East Asian practices and distinguish bodywork from massage. They might not be relevant now, however. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions from the members for this witness? Seeing none, thank you very much for joining us today. We do have an unfavorable panel, so if I could bring Lori Kendall Ellis, Linda Burrell-War, Tiffany Smith-Williams, Sabrina Lopez, and then we have one virtual Chelsea Adams-Cook. So we can go ahead and bring them up. You can come to the table and give your testimony when you're ready.
Being elected. Absolutely. Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. I am Lori Kendall Ellis, Director of the Board of Physical Therapy Examiners. I am here today in opposition of HB 1527 and to serve again as a resource to the committee. The board recognizes that the value that complementary and alternative healthcare practitioners can bring to Maryland's healthcare ecosystem can be very significant, but it also needs to be regulated, and we have concerns about public safety. First, the bill proposes an unregulated practice model. This undermines the longstanding public protection frameworks established by the Maryland General Assembly. Without proof of minimum standards for education, training, and clear accountability, we significantly increase the risk of fraud, exploitation, and consumer harm. Second, the bill relies on vague and undefined modalities. It does not define complementary or alternative health care. Instead, it lists broad terms such as folk practices, mind healing practices, healing touch, and body work. This lack of clarity or classification leaves the consumer unable to discern what requires a license, certification, or other professional training for safe and effective care. Third, there is no mechanism for oversight or accountability. Practitioners would be required to provide certain notices, but the critical question we pose to the committee is who shall ensure compliance? There is not even a requirement to register as a Maryland state business, which could provide at least some baseline level of public protection. The board's full written testimony details our comprehensive concerns. Given that our core mission is to protect the public, the board respectfully requests that HB 1527, even with proposed amendments, not be advanced. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Linda Burrell-War. I am the Executive Director of the State Board of Long-Term Care Administrators. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to express the board's opposition to House Bill 1527. HB 1527 would authorize individuals to practice complementary or alternative health care without a license, certification, or other state authorization. While the bill may be intended to expand access to alternative services, it creates a serious risk for seniors who are aging in place and residents of long-term care settings by opening the door for unlicensed individuals to provide health-related services. Maryland is currently strengthening oversight in long-term care. Beginning July 1st, 2026, assisted living managers must be licensed by the State Board of Long-Term Care Administrators before practicing in the state. This reform was enacted to increase accountability, professionalism, and resident safety in assisted living programs. HB 1527 moves policy in the opposite direction. At the same time, Maryland is requiring stronger credentials for those responsible for managing assisted living programs. This bill would allow unlicensed individuals to provide certain health-related services. This creates a regulatory contradiction that could undermine recent reforms designed to protect seniors. Residents in nursing homes and assisted living programs are among the most medically vulnerable people in our state. Allowing unlicensed practitioners to provide services, particularly when those services may appear therapeutic or health-related, creates confusion for residents, families, and facility staff. It also increases the risk that vulnerable residents could receive care from individuals who are not subject to professional standards, training requirements, or disciplinary oversight. Maryland should be strengthening consumer protections in healthcare settings, not weakening them. As the state implements the new assisted living manager licensing requirement in 2026, policymakers should focus on reinforcing professional standards across the continuum of care. Thank you for your consideration. The State Board of Long-Term Care Administrators respectfully requests an unfavorable report on House Bill 1527. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the Health Committee. My name is Sabrina Lopez. I'm the Vice Chair of the Maryland Board of Massage Therapy Examiners and a licensed massage therapist. I'm here today to request an unfavorable report on HB 1527. While the intent may be to expand access to health care, this bill inadvertently compromises the very safety standards Maryland has spent years refining to protect its citizens. Licensure is not a barrier to entry. It is a shield for the public. Licensed practitioners must undergo rigorous education and mandatory criminal history records checks. HB 1527 replaces these vital safeguards with a simple written disclosure, which is insufficient to prevent bad actors or ensure ethical accountability in the sensitive environment of a treatment room. LMTs in Maryland complete extensive training in anatomy, physiology, and pathology. This education is essential for working safety with vulnerable populations. By authorizing alternative health care without these standards, HB 1527 suggests that clinical expertise is optional, devaluing our profession and confusing the public. The board has worked tirelessly through legislation like HB 42 and HB 975 to close regulatory gray areas. HB 1527 reopens these loopholes, making it significantly harder for law enforcement to distinguish between therapeutic practices from illicit operations or human trafficking. The bill's definitions of complementary or alternative health care is exceptionally broad and include terms that lack rigorous legal or medical specificity. It lists practices such as bodywork, traditional healing methods, and other non-invasive therapies without establishing clear boundaries for what these entail. Terms like traditional healing are culturally significant but legally imprecise, potentially allowing bad actors to claim protection for high-risk or unproven interventions by simply labeling them as traditional. For these reasons, the Massage Board respectfully requests an unfavorable report. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Bagnall, Vice Chair Cullison, and Health Committee members. I am Tiffany Smith-Williams, the Executive Director for the Maryland State Board of Acupuncture. I testify today in opposition to HB 1527. Maryland's current healthcare system includes complementary and alternative medicine practices, CAM for short, that have successfully integrated into a mix of non-Western medical systems, as well as energy, herbal, manual, and mind and body practices into our regulatory environment. These CAM practitioners are educated by accredited providers, often required to demonstrate mastery via supervised clinical internships and examinations, promise to abide by statutory and regulatory standards when licensed, and recommit to this obligation each time they renew their license. This promise includes a commitment to mastery through the completion of continued education as well. Such standards are the foundations of a quality and safe patient care and are cemented in Maryland's history dating back to the 18th century. In the event that a practitioner fails to adhere to codified standards, health regulation provides a framework to address both minor and egregious violations. HB 1527 eliminates this system by cherry-picking the deregulation of certain treatment modalities from some boards and establishes a pool of CAM practices for which there are no standards and no regulatory system of accountability. In the event of a wrongdoing, Maryland consumers bear the responsibility of convincing law enforcement that a crime has been committed or hoping that the Attorney General can prove a consumer protection violation. All the while, the uncredentialed and unverifiable CAM practitioner continues to practice in Maryland or successfully initiates another practice in another state because this bill would protect them from being tracked nationally by a well-established system such as the National Practitioner Data Bank. In an era where bad actors have unfettered access to technology to further nefarious activity, it is not safe to allow any practitioners to be less qualified and less accountable to touch Maryland residents. The Board of Acupuncture respectfully urges an unfavorable report for HB 1527 as originally proposed or as amended. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I do have one virtual witness on this panel as well. Ms. Chelsea Adams-Cook, if you want to unmute and begin your testimony.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Chelsea Adams-Cook, and I'm a licensed massage therapist in Maryland. I'm here today to respectfully request an unfavorable report for HB 1527. Massage therapists in Maryland are healthcare professionals who are committed to providing safe, ethical, and efficient care to the public. To practice in the state, we must complete extensive education, hands-on training, pass national examinations, undergo background checks, and meet continuing education and ethical standards that are set by the Maryland State Board of Massage Therapy Examiners. These requirements exist to ensure public safety and to maintain the trust between therapists and the communities that we serve. HB 1527 raises significant concerns for our profession and public protection. This bill lists 26 techniques that could be practiced without licensing, education, or professional oversight. One of the terms that's listed is bodywork, which is not clearly defined in the bill. In a professional setting, bodywork is often used as a broad term that may include hands-on therapies involving direct physical contact with the body, including techniques commonly associated with massage therapy. Without a clear definition, this bill could create confusion about what practice requires licensure and what does not. The lack of clarity has already caused concerns within the massage therapy community. Many licensed massage therapists and registered massage practitioners are questioning whether this legislation would allow individuals to perform services that resemble or marketed as massage or bodywork without maintaining professional licensure in Maryland. Maryland has worked for many years to establish clear standards to protect the public and distinguish legitimate massage practices from illegitimate businesses and misuse the term massage or bodywork. Weakening the regulation clarity could make enforcement more difficult and undermine the progress that has been made to protect both consumers and licensed professionals. For these reasons and the others that I've listed in my written testimony, I respectfully urge the committee to issue an unfavorable report on HB 1527 in order to protect the public and maintain the integrity of licensed massage therapists in Maryland. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you for your testimony. This is the final witness on the unfavorable panel. Are there any questions for this panel from the members? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony today. This does conclude the bill hearing on House Bill 1527, and we're now going to move to House Bill 1558, which is State Board of Physicians Anesthesiologist Assistance Licensing. Delegate Woods, if you want to come to the panel, come to the table, and I see you have two sponsor panels. It's a very bold decision at this point in crossover week. So if you want to bring your panel and begin your testimony.
Absolutely, absolutely. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Okay, you sit here at the level. Can't hear y'all, I can't hear you. What you saying? Good afternoon, everyone. I am Delegate Jamila Woods, and I am so excited to be before my other favorite committee in the General Assembly. I am extremely honored today to have my Chief of Staff, Dolapo Olomo, who is going to actually present the bill for us today. I will be here for questions.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, Chair Bagnall, Vice Chair Collison, and esteemed members of the Health Committee. My name is Dolapo Olomo, and I'm here to request a favorable report on House Bill 1558 on behalf of Delegate Jamila Woods. House Bill 1558 establishes a licensing and regulatory framework for anesthesiologist assistants under the State Board of Physicians. At its core, House Bill 1558 is about building a stronger, safer, and more sustainable anesthesia workforce in Maryland. This bill creates a clear pathway for licensure, supervision, regulation, and discipline of anesthesiologist assistants while maintaining the physician-led model of care that already exists in many hospitals and surgical settings across the country. Nationally, the anesthesia workforce is experiencing a critical shortage, and Maryland is not immune. Data analysis from the Maryland Department of Labor using LICAS data shows that in 2019, there were approximately 624 physician anesthesiologists in Maryland, compared to only 250 in 2025, a decrease of nearly 60%. As a result, hospitals, ambulatory surgery centers, and other procedural settings across the state are struggling to fill critical anesthesia positions. While the shortage is not resolved overnight, we do have an immediate and practical opportunity to mitigate its impact. Authorizing the licensure of anesthesiologist assistants is a targeted step that will help expand the workforce, reduce strain on providers, and improve access to care for patients across Maryland. Currently, anesthesiologist assistants are licensed in 23 states and jurisdictions, including Washington, D.C., which has allowed anesthesiologist assistants, CAAs, to practice for over 2 decades. And Virginia, which passed similar legislation last year. Without action, Maryland risks falling behind and losing both workforce talent and patient care capacity to neighboring states. This is especially important because CAA profession has existed for over 50 years, yet Maryland has not leveraged this highly trained workforce. We know that there are individuals who are from Maryland, trained at Maryland institutions, and forced to leave the state every day to practice as licensed CAAs elsewhere. House Bill 1558 allows us to retain that talent and bring those professionals back into our healthcare system. This bill is very straightforward. It licenses anesthesiologist assistants in Maryland, defines their scope of practice, and establishes training, standards, supervision requirements, and full regulatory oversight under the State Board of Physicians. It also includes licensure qualifications, criminal background check requirements, and continuing education expectations, temporary and expedited licensure pathways. It also includes title protections and a clear disciplinary framework to ensure accountability. It is important to address several points that may be raised today by others in opposition to House Bill 1558. One argument we anticipate hearing is that certified registered nurse anesthetists, or CRNAs, operate under a supervision model, while CAAs operate under a fundamentally different direction model. In Maryland, that distinction does not accurately reflect the practical reality. CRNAs and CAAs are both part of the anesthesia care team and are intended to function under the oversight of an anesthesiologist. House Bill 1558 does not create a looser or less safe standard. It creates a formal licensure and regulatory structure for a profession that has already designed to work with physician-led anesthesia care. We also anticipate claims that licensing CAAs in Maryland would somehow take opportunities away from CRNAs. That concern does not reflect the workforce reality facing our state. Maryland currently produces only about 100 CRNAs each year, and that number alone is not sufficient to meet the growing needs of hospitals, surgical centers, and patients across the state. House Bill 1558 is not about replacing one profession with another. It's about increasing the number of qualified anesthesial professionals available to support patient care and relieve workforce shortages in a highly specialized area of medicine. Another point that may be raised today is that CAAs are somehow less qualified because they do not come from a nursing background. That framing is incomplete. CAAs complete a rigorous educational pathway specifically designed for the practice of anesthesiology. They graduate from an accredited anesthesiologist assistance program, must pass a national certifying examination, and often complete extensive science and pre-medical preparation, including the MCAT, before entering the profession. Their training is different from the nursing model. But different does not mean lesser. It is a distinct and highly specialized pathway into the anesthesia care team. This bill is not about lowering standards. It's about creating standards where none currently exist in Maryland for this profession. It is about a patient's safety, workforce capacity, and modernizing our laws to reflect the full range of qualified professionals who can safely serve on an anesthesia care team. Maryland should not close itself off to a licensed, highly trained workforce model that other states have already adopted and regulated successfully. If we're very serious about access to care and workforce readiness, we should provide our hospitals and providers with another safe and regulated pathway to meet patient needs. For these reasons, I respectfully urge a favorable report on House Bill 1558. Thank you, and I'll pass it over to my panel.
Thank you very much, Delapo. Took a lot of great points there. Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee, for the record, my name is Camille Fesh, representing Children's National Hospital, here in strong support of House Bill 951, the licensing of certified anesthesia assistants, or CAAs, lest I tie my tongue in twisters here, CAAs. So as we begin this testimony, I think it's helpful to provide some context to the profession. As Delapo mentioned, this profession is over 50 years old, and it is currently being practiced in 23 states and jurisdictions, including DC and Virginia most recently, and in DC for 2 decades at least. So when it comes to Children's Hospital, 60% of the patients at Children's are Marylanders. And it doesn't make sense that just a few minutes over the DC border, a Maryland child can be treated in the anesthesia care team using a CAA. But if that child is here in Maryland, they cannot receive the same care. So it makes sense that we extend this care knowing full well that there is a shortage of professionals working in anesthesia. And we know that this shortage, as are many other healthcare professions, the shortage in anesthesia is going to grow as the workforce is aging and as the population needs more care and is also aging. And CAAs, certified CAAs, and licensed and regulated by the Board of Physicians is one way to help alleviate this shortage. In addition, you'll notice we have a broad coalition here supporting this bill. And you'll see, in addition to the people who have testifying today, you'll see in your written packets, the Maryland Association of Anesthesiologists and the DC Association of Anesthesiologists. We have the Maryland Hospital Association and member hospitals, including Children's, Ascension St. Agnes, Luminous Health, MedStar Health. And there are others as well. And then we have the National Association of Certified Anesthesiologists Assistants, Quad A, who will speak next. And we also have representatives of the Maryland Association, which consists of Marylanders that are born and raised in Maryland, but cannot practice their chosen medical profession here in Maryland and have to drive past hospitals with shortages to go to jurisdictions where they can practice. So with that, I'll turn it over to Shane from Quad A, and thank you very much.
Get double here. Excuse me. Well, thank you very much, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. I'm absolutely delighted to speak in support of HB 1558. My name is Shane Angus, and for over 26 years, I've been a certified anesthesiologist assistant. And for 13 of those years, I've lived in Maryland and I practiced in DC. I'm also an associate professor and focus on anesthesia education and patient safety. What matters most here is safety, and for over 55 years, CAs have demonstrated a safe record. A study from Stanford showed this. They reviewed 443,000 Medicare inpatient surgical cases and found no significant difference in length of stay, inpatient spending, or mortality between physician anesthesiologist-led care teams using CAAs or CRNAs. Relatedly, malpractice insurance is the same. Payers' reimbursement is the same. That is because CAA education is selective and anesthesia specific. Opposition has claimed that CAAs have non-specific academic backgrounds. That is not accurate. They complete a heavy pre-medical science curriculum with biochemistry, physics, advanced statistics, calculus, organic chemistry, and extensive research and clinical experiences, and enter with academic criteria consistent with medical school acceptances. Training is anesthesia specific from day one. Students complete graduate level clinical anesthesia education and extensive training across such locations and specialties as pediatrics, obstetrics, cardiothoracic, trauma, and in DC, they train and practice in every single hospital. And the classroom and anesthesia clinical training minimums are strikingly the same ranges for CAAs and CRNAs. These are different pathways, but similar anesthesia training expectations. There are now more than 4,000 CAAs and more than 25 educational programs, drawing over 19,000 applications. Many of those universities also train CRNAs, so this is not a zero-sum model. Maryland should be able to access that workforce. HB 1558 offers a safe, physician-led team that strengthens capacity. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony in strong support of House Bill 1558. My name is Dr. Brad Tasher, and I'm the Chief of Anesthesiology, Pain and Perioperative Medicine at Children's National Hospital. I also serve as Associate Vice Chair for the Society for Pediatric Anesthesia's Committee on Quality and Safety, and I'm a Maryland resident. Nationally and here in Maryland, the anesthesia workforce is experiencing a critical shortage. The shortage is even more concerning in pediatrics as fewer medical school graduates are entering into pediatrics or its subspecialties like pediatric anesthesiology. House Bill 1558 addresses this critical workforce gap by licensing CAAs and expanding access to high-quality anesthesia care. As the region's only standalone children's hospital, we have safely and effectively utilized the anesthesia care team model in DC with the inclusion of CAAs for the past 20 years. This model allows us to maximize our staffing resources and provide both safe and efficient access to anesthesia services for our patients, the majority of whom are Marylanders. Licensing CAs in Maryland is a critical and practical step toward addressing the anesthesia workforce shortage. At Children's National, the acuity of our patients often requires an anesthesiologist to CAA ratio closer to 1 to 2. Even with this more conservative staffing model, CAAs meaningfully expand our ability to deliver care. By allowing anesthesiologists to supervise multiple highly trained CAAs concurrently, we're able to care for additional patients safely and without unnecessary delay. In our practice, this means that one anesthesiologist can supervise 2 CAAs across 2 ORs instead of 2 anesthesiologists personally staffing each OR, allowing us to deploy that anesthesiologist elsewhere to help other patients. At Children's National, we believe that we need the full range of anesthesia providers, anesthesiologists, nurse anesthetists, and CAAs to better serve Maryland patients, and that's why we continue to advocate for our access to all of these specialties. Thank you.
Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee, I'm Dan Shattuck here today on behalf of the Maryland Society of Anesthesiologists. I serve as the executive director, and we have been before this committee a number of times talking about workforce issues. We at the MSA have been working with our members to try and identify the key challenges and the hurdles to overcome to recruit and retain the best workforce in Maryland, but we know we can't do it by ourselves. Interestingly, anesthesiology, the profession, only has one physician extender, and that's the CRNAs, at least only one in Maryland. As you've heard, there is another, the anesthesia assistants, who have been working for over 55 years in 23 states and jurisdictions. We see this bill as a logical step to increase the number of providers in the state of Maryland. As you heard Dr. Tasher say, they work seamlessly in the team model. They add and enable hospitals and anesthesia staffs to run ORs in a more efficient and safe manner. And it's also a ready and willing workforce. I mean, they're on the outskirts of the state of Maryland. You'll hear from a number of trainees that they want to work here in Maryland. So we see this as a positive step. We are also exploring options in terms of other ways to recruit and retain, but in terms of flipping a switch, I think this is a good one that we should explore, and we're in strong support. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Come up to the table.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair Collison. I'll be quick. My name is Jane Krinke. I'm here on behalf of the Maryland Hospital Association in strong support of House Bill 1558. I won't repeat what you've heard already, but we think this bill really closes a critical gap that exists in the supply of anesthesia providers and the increasing demand for anesthesia services. As was mentioned, you'll see testimony from several hospitals acknowledging how this would help them. We continue to hear from hospitals that they increasingly rely on locum tenens, so temporary anesthesiologists to come and staff, and that when you don't have enough anesthesiologists, that can impact the surgeries you're able to offer. So this really is about expanding access to care, especially in those communities that struggle to recruit anesthesiologists. This profession has been around since the 1960s. I think that's important to note. I did include a case study in my testimony from a hospital in Missouri that talks about how they use this in their hospital in this model, working with CAAs, and it's been really successful. We think that having this flexibility to use an anesthesiologist assistant or a CRNA just broadens the opportunities for the anesthesiologists. It's important to note that this is all guided by the physician-led team, which is how hospitals work now. It's a very team-based model and collaborative, and so this aligns with the work that's already happening in our hospitals and goes to what this committee has been doing around modernizing the workforce. We've appreciated the partnership we've had as we've come before you with different requests for new licensure categories, new positions like the limited scope X-ray machine operator. All of this is important as we look, as care moves outside the hospital walls and changes. It's important that we keep up. So for all those reasons, we ask for a favorable report. Thank you.
Are there questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you all. We'll bring panel 2 up, which is Jacqueline Babin, Ashley Bagwell, Dwayne Skinner, Caitlin Denicola, and Ram Peruvima. And go ahead and get started.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and esteemed members of this committee. My name is Dr. Dwayne Skinner. I'm the Medical Director of the MedStar Ambulatory Surgery Network's ASCs, which we have centers in all 3 jurisdictions, DC, Maryland, Virginia. Excuse me. I'm a physician anesthesiologist practicing in all those jurisdictions, and I'm here in support of House Bill 1558. Firstly, I want to share with you what I and other local anesthesia leaders are seeing on the ground, and some of this might be somewhat repetitive. In my healthcare organization's Maryland Surgery Centers, for example, we are consistently short-staffed due to persistent and growing supply-demand mismatch with anesthesia providers. Outpatient surgical demand is increasing due to shifting age demographics of patients and their need for more surgical services. Local anesthesia supply, however, is not keeping up. More and more anesthesia providers are entering retirement, and many are opting to work very lucrative short-term contracts in lieu of an employment model, which increases costs for ASCs, hospitals, and eventually consumers. Healthcare organizations in Maryland need another provider option, and adding CAAs into the existing physician-led model will alleviate the supply bottleneck, provide more staffing flexibility, stabilize anesthesia staffing costs, and improve patient access and provider coverage, while importantly, not removing physician leadership, nor limiting the present or future practice potential of CRNAs. Secondly, working within the anesthesia care team model is part of my everyday clinical practice, and in this model, the anesthesiologist directs care, makes key medical decisions, and manages complex situations, all in coordination with the CRNA or CAA, with one physician anesthesiologist directing the care team in more than one location at a time. The model works because it is safe, efficient, and promotes quality care delivery through clear roles, strong communication, and physician leadership. This recipe works across settings, from ambulatory surgery centers to level 1 trauma facilities, and I have successfully worked with both CAAs and CRNAs in each environment interchangeably. I thank you for your time, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Chair Bagnell, Vice Chair Cullison, and the members of the Health Committee, thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Jacqueline Babin, and I am a certified anesthesiologist assistant and a Maryland resident. I was born and raised in Maryland and have set down my own family's roots here as well. I graduated with my Master of Science in Anesthesia in 2020 and have been working for almost 6 years now at a level 1 trauma center in DC. I am the student coordinator there, and I can tell you firsthand that we do not displace any students or restrict any preceptorship for any other anesthesia profession. I'm also the president of the Maryland Association of AAs, and I can tell you that we are open to solutions for cost of licensure, as a 2-hour-long commute for myself and time away from my family costs exponentially more than what I would have to pay for licensure. I cherish my role as a CAA, and I deliver high-quality and comprehensive anesthetic care. My specific responsibilities include, but are not limited to, the following: obtaining pre-anesthetic health history, obtaining diagnostic laboratory and other studies like drawing labs for evaluation, inserting and interpreting data from invasive monitoring like arterial lines, pulmonary artery catheters, and central venous lines, all of which are needed for specific procedures and also for patients with specific health histories. I am allowed to administer anesthetic agents and controlled substances. These are induction medications to go off to sleep, pain medications, and anesthetic gas. And I am allowed to do airway management to establish and maintain this airway throughout the anesthetic, including monitoring and adjusting ventilation. I am able to evaluate and treat life-threatening situations and administer care such as CPR and advanced cardiac life support, and I participate in the clinical training of others, any anesthesia student. According to the ASA, CAAs and CRNAs share identical patient care responsibilities and are treated the same by CMS and billed the same in the ACT model, the safest form of anesthesia care. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, members of the House Health Committee. My name is Caitlin Denicola, and I'm speaking to express my strong support for House Bill 1558. I'm a lifelong resident of Howard County, Maryland, and have completed my general biology degree at the University of Maryland, College Park. I'm currently a student anesthesiologist assistant enrolled in a Master's of Science in Anesthesia program in Washington, D.C. In order to be admitted into this program, I completed hundreds of clinical experience hours. Admissions required completed pre-med classes such as organic chemistry, calculus, biochemistry, anatomy, and physiology. In addition to these prerequisite classes, we were required to take either the GRE or MCAT for admission. Certified anesthesiologist assistants practice exclusively in the anesthesiologist-led anesthesia care team model. During my training as a student, I've had firsthand experience in this model. At multiple locations, I've witnessed the delivery of safe, high-quality anesthesia and the ACT model across many surgical settings. Throughout my training, I gained experience in a wide range of specialties, including neurosurgery, cardiac, obstetrics, trauma, pediatrics, and other complex surgical services which prepare me to care for a diverse patient population in high acuity settings. Following graduation, after 24 months of rigorous didactic, clinical, and simulation training, as well as an average of 2,200 clinical hours, I would strongly prefer to work in Maryland if licensure were available. As a Maryland resident, I am deeply invested in serving the communities and patients who shaped who I am as a person. I respectfully urge you to support House Bill 1558 so that Maryland residents can return home to provide safe, physician-led anesthesia care to Maryland patients. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the committee. I'm Ashley Bagwell here this afternoon on behalf of the Maryland Association of Anesthesiologist Assistants in support of House Bill 1558. I'll make 2 final points. First, on the letter from the Board of Physicians, in short, we think that a lot of the issues raised there are addressed and can be addressed easily. Regarding the suggestion that we look at alternative models, including Kentucky, we would argue that that's not necessary. Kentucky established a pathway for PAs to practice in anesthesia. That's an antiquated model, and frankly, Kentucky doesn't even really use it. So we would argue that that's not necessary. Second, I'd like to proactively address some opposition testimony that we heard in the Senate and that might come up this afternoon, and that's related to findings in the Epstein study. This study focused on data from a 24 operating room surgical suite, which included anesthesia residents and certified registered nurse anesthetist. This study focused on and looked at lapses in supervision in first start cases. The study did not focus on or include certified anesthesiologist assistants as a defined part of its study cohort. I'm not arguing the merits of the study itself. I simply wanted to flag for this committee that the study did not include as a part of its study cohort certified anesthesiologist assistants, nor did it in its findings find evidence of Medicare fraud, and any suggestions or implications of Medicare fraud is simply unfounded. With that, Madam Chair, I will reiterate what you've heard many times this afternoon, that AAs are licensed in 23 states and they have been practicing in the District of Columbia for over 2 decades without incident. And for that reason, we would urge a favorable vote on House Bill 1558.
Thank you very much for your testimony. This actually concludes the sponsor panel. We do have one favorable witness. Are there any questions for the sponsor panel before we bring up our virtual witness? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony. I do have Ram Peruvemba. So if you want to go ahead and unmute and begin your testimony.
Hi, thank you, members of the committee, for hearing my testimony. I'm Dr. Ram Peruvemba. I'm the president of the Maryland Society of Anesthesiologists. I'm here to represent the MSA in support of House Bill 1558. As MSA president, of course, my priority is the safety and well-being of all Marylanders who undergo surgical care and receive anesthesia. To that end, I want to preserve an adequate supply of anesthesiologists in Maryland and within the care team model. We know a shortage of physician and our anesthesia providers exists because hospitals and facilities currently spend an enormous amount of money in an attempt to recruit anesthesia providers to the state of Maryland for a variety of reasons. So we need an additional pool of skilled providers to pull from. So allowing anesthesia assistants to get licensed in Maryland would do just that. AAs are currently utilized in other states, as mentioned, and locally at Children's National Hospital, where they work in the care team to take care of complex pediatric patients, further reinforcing their safety profile. AAs would work within their scope under the direct supervision of anesthesiologists. And one point that did come up in the Senate side that might come up today is the level of supervision required for anesthesia assistants. I've been practicing anesthesiology for 25 years, and I've found that that level of supervision is largely a factor of the post-graduation clinical experience of the provider, not the quality of the education or training of that particular provider. I've had to provide additional support for young physicians, CRNAs, and other types of providers when they first begin clinical practice, when they may find themselves in unusual situations in the surgical suite. We factor in these considerations at the facility level and construct our teams to maximize patient safety. Therefore, I ask that you vote favorably on HB 1558. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions for this witness from the members? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony. This concludes the favorable panel. We do have one unfavorable. So if I can bring up Shannon Seifert, William Kress, Jacqueline Mitchell, Matthew Zinder, and Ariel Harris virtually. And you can come to the table and begin your testimony.
Thank you, members. Thank you, Chair and Co-Chair. My name is Matthew Zinder. I am a certified registered nurse anesthetist. I've been a Maryland CRNA for 22 years. I also own my own mobile anesthesia practice. It's a CRNA-run anesthesia practice. I've run and owned and operated it for 18 years. And my particular practice is family-owned, and we have been operating in the state of Maryland for 42 years, as I took it over from my father. He started it in 1984. We cover ambulatory surgery centers throughout the entire state of Maryland. I also speak all over the country on the subject of the business of anesthesia, and I'm here to testify that CAAs do not make financial sense for the state of Maryland. I'm not here to talk about ability to practice. I'm not here to talk about safety. I'm here to talk about federal regulations that govern how CAAs can bill for their services. In order for them to do so, they have to bill under medical direction. Now, I'm happy to describe to you the difference between medical direction and supervision. Don't have enough time to do it now, but I can do that later if you so wish. But some of the testimony that we just heard, one of the statements was CRNAs must also function under an anesthesiologist. That is not true in the state of Maryland. We are a collaborative model. If that were true, my practice would not have been in business for 42 years. We collaborate with surgeons also in order to practice on our own at these freestanding single specialty ambulatory surgery centers. When it comes to that Epstein study, I'll also address that. There were no CAAs in that study, but it's still under the same understanding that when we talk about ratios, when we bill under medical direction, 1-to-2 ratio is 33% out of compliance, and 1-to-3 is 99% out of compliance, because an anesthesiologist cannot be in 2 or 3 or 4 rooms all at once. So that puts you under what is truly Medicare fraud when billing under medical direction. I'm out of time, but I hope to get some questions. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, ladies and gentlemen of the committee, my name is Sean Seifert. I was an Army Nurse Corps captain assigned to Walter Reed Army Medical Center and completed my master's in nurse anesthesia at Georgetown University. I've spent the last 22 years of practice in hospitals across Maryland, from Annapolis to Hagerstown, Baltimore to Silver Spring. I have been the chief CRNA of many hospitals, including the system chief of a network of hospitals and surgery centers throughout Maryland and DC. So I have led and managed teams, including both CRNAs and AAs. From the systems level perspective, Maryland's current system already is the gold standard in anesthesia. We have care teams of physicians and CRNAs in the appropriate settings, and physician-only or CRNA-only care in others. This flexibility allows us to provide care in urban and rural settings and is a cost-effective strategy for Maryland patients. Adding AAs won't expand the workforce. It will only add more non-clinical physicians, increasing costs while not directly providing care to patients. With mandated direction ratios, AAs ensure that physicians are unavailable for direct patient care while relegated to a supervisor's role. If a physician is supervising 4 rooms and there's an emergency in 1, the other 3 rooms have to run independently now. CRNAs that have been educated and experienced to collaborate directly with the surgeon have no trouble in this scenario. AAs, as mandated dependent providers, are effectively prevented from starting the next case without the physician. This creates gridlock in the operating room, both inefficient and expensive. Collaborative practice models are the future. AAs will trap us in the past when Maryland needs to move forward. This year, Kansas voted against AA licensure. Ohio just removed physician supervision of CRNAs, and CRNAs continue to be the right solution for Maryland. I ask for an unfavorable ruling on HB 1558. In response to the earlier comments about the shortage here.
Respectfully, your time is up.
Oh,
thank you.
Apologies.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the Health Committee. My name is Jacqueline Mitchell, and I have been a nurse for 40 years, with 18 years as a certified registered nurse anesthetist. I come before you in strong opposition of this bill, HB 1558. I would like to say I come before you in strong opposition, extensive professional experience as a retired Army colonel, a military CRNA, clinical director, and educator at University of Maryland Nurse Anesthesia Program, where I teach and train the students in the clinical arena, taking care of Maryland's sickest patients. The anesthesia care model is fundamentally flawed, and I have 4 reasons. First, it has failed to scale. AAs was licensed in 1969, yet only 4,000 practicing in the United States, with nearly half of them mainly in Georgia and Florida. The model has struggled to grow because it is entirely dependent on an anesthesiologist for supervision. Second, Maryland faces a demographic cliff. Approximately 45.6% of anesthesiologists in Maryland are age 55 or older. It is fundamentally unsound policy to build a new workforce that is legally dependent on a provider group that is approaching retirement. Third, it is an economic dead end. This legislation diverts attention and resources from the workforce that already exists, and that is nurse anesthetists. After nearly 6 decades, the AA model has still failed to scale meaningfully nationwide. Fourth, it provides no solution to rural Maryland. Because AA must be tethered to an anesthesiologist, they cannot practice in rural critical access hospital. In closing, Maryland is the gold standard of care. CRNAs are meeting the need, and I asked you respectfully to oppose House Bill 1558. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Bill Kress. I'm here today on behalf of MANA, Maryland Association of Nurse Anesthetists, in opposition to the bill. I think you can look at this bill by the 3 factors you really judge most healthcare bills by: quality of care, cost of care, and access to care. And I will tell you that this bill fails on all 3 fronts. With respect to quality of care, these 2 professions are vastly different in training and healthcare experience. You have a nurse anesthetist who has a 4-year undergrad degree as an RN. They have 3 to 5 years experience in the intensive care unit, then 3 years of anesthesia school. And you compare that to an AA who has a 4-year degree without healthcare experience and 2 years in anesthesia school. And yet they're both at the head of the table delivering anesthesia. And what hasn't been said today is they both make the same salary and they both build the same codes. And that really turns me to the second issue of cost of care. So you're getting the exact same cost and they're billing it the same model, and yet an AA provides for a more expensive practice. Why is that? Because they require a supervision rate usually of 2 to 1, not 4 to 1. And so that requires 2 anesthesiologists instead of 1 in the CRNA model. Finally, let me get to access to care, because this is an interesting issue. Sometimes we think any other provider is a good thing. But in Maryland, we have 3 schools. And the school at Hopkins, quite frankly, was established because in 2016, this committee rejected this very same bill that was supported by Johns Hopkins. And as a result, they opened up their own nurse anesthesia school. That school, along with the University of Maryland, gets over 1,000 applicants, and they can only take 35. And the reason they're limited is because of preceptor spots. If you pass this bill, you'll limit further preceptor spots for nurse anesthetists. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for your testimony. We have one more virtual witness, Ariel Harris. If you want to go ahead and unmute and begin your testimony.
Good afternoon. My name is Oriel Harris. I am a health policy analyst for the Maryland Board of Physicians. The board respectfully opposes House Bill 1558. While we value workforce expansion, this bill presents significant fiscal and regulatory blind spots that hinder safe implementation. Our opposition is centered on these factors, the first one being fiscal sustainability. With only 50 proposed licensees, this profession cannot be self-sustaining. To cover administrative costs alone, the board will be forced to charge these 50 individual practitioners exorbitantly high fees or inappropriately shift the burden onto physician licensure fees. Another factor in our opposition is market data. Data from the DC Board of Medicine shows that licensing does not guarantee clinical activity, as only 49% of licensed assistants in DC actually provide patient care. With Maryland already at 97% adequacy in supply and demand for these practitioners, and ranked number 4 in the nation for workforce density, there is limited evidence of a workforce gap for this profession. The board would need further discussions with the proponents to reconcile this high density with the perceived workforce shortage. Another factor in our opposition is alternative models. States like Kentucky and Washington successfully delegate anesthesia duties to existing self-sustaining groups. This model protects the public without the administrative and fiscal impact of creating an entirely new regulated profession. The board is not opposed to further collaborative discussions with the proponents and stakeholders, and the board formally requests that this legislation not proceed during the current session. The board instead commits to a thorough evaluation in the interim. We believe that through this evaluation, the board will be able to fulfill its mission to protect the public and assure quality health care in Maryland. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions from the members for this panel? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony today and for your patience. This does conclude the bill hearing on House Bill 1558 and our hearings for today. Go ahead and let me know when we're down.